Stop scrolling. Picture this: 40,000 years ago, somewhere on the Eurasian steppe, 20 below zero, the wind cuts right through you, and you're standing in the snow, holding a wooden spear thinner than your own wrist, staring at a creature that weighs 4 tons, stands 12 feet tall at the shoulder, and has tusks that could rip a full-grown tree out of the ground like a weed. Behind you, 5 people from your camp. In front of you, the only thing standing between your tribe and starvation. No phone, no gun, no metal, no bow, no strategy that any modern survival expert would call sane. And yet, you move forward, not once, not by accident. For 70,000 years, your ancestors walked straight toward the most dangerous animals on the planet with almost nothing in their hands. And they won. How? What did they have that no predator on Earth had? Here's how most people picture those humans: desperate, reckless, half-starved creatures who threw themselves at megafauna out of pure necessity and survived mostly by luck. That's the comfortable version, the one that keeps us at a safe evolutionary distance from what was actually happening. The truth is harder to sit with. These hunts weren't acts of desperation. They were acts of near-industrial precision, carried out by beings whose bodies were specifically, measurably built for exactly this kind of kill. Heights of 5'5" to 5'9" for men. Bone density and muscle mass higher than the average person alive today. Studies of Cro-Magnon remains show physical stress levels comparable to professional endurance athletes. Their bones carried the marks of years of repeated strain, running, throwing, hauling heavy loads across long distances. They weren't primitive. They were trained from birth for one job: get food in conditions that kill almost everything else. They lived in groups of 20 to 50 people. Inside those groups, there were roles: trackers, drivers, finishers, butchers. This wasn't chaos. It was a system. The woolly mammoth was not a bigger elephant. It was something else entirely. 4 tons of muscle covered in fur up to 3 feet long, with a dense undercoat several inches thick. Beneath the skin, a layer of fat up to 4 inches deep. It was a living thermal engine built for the Arctic. Its tusks, up to 13 feet long, weren't just weapons. They were snow plows, clearing ground to reach frozen grass. A mammoth could eat up to 400 pounds of vegetation a day. And it was smart. Skull studies show a brain volume comparable to the modern elephant, an animal with documented long-term memory, complex social bonds, and the ability to learn. That's what made it dangerous. The mammoth remembered. If a herd had a bad encounter with humans in a particular spot, they avoided it. The hunters knew this, and they planned their routes around it. The sites where mammoth hunting evidence has been found date mostly to the last glacial maximum, between 26,000 and 19,000 years ago. Average winter temperatures on the Eurasian steppe during that period, between -4 and -31 degrees Fahrenheit. Summer lasted 3 to 4 months, topping out around 60 FF. The landscape, what scientists call the mammoth steppe, was massive open grassland, almost no trees, blasted by constant wind. The snow wasn't soft and powdery, it was compressed by wind into a hard crust. That meant tracks stayed sharp. That meant hunters could read them from miles away. The cold wasn't just the enemy. In the right hands, it was a tool. Before the chase, they had to find the herd. Then they had to choose. Hunters never went after the first animal they saw. The target was whoever walked at the edge of the group. A young male with no experience, an older animal with an uneven gait, anything with an asymmetric track, a sign of injury. Anyone whose rhythm was off from the rest. Analysis of bone assemblages at sites like Mizerich in Ukraine and Dolny Viestony in the Czech Republic shows a disproportionately high number of young males and older individuals among the killed. This isn't random. It's a deliberate pattern repeated across dozens of sites over thousands of years. The hunters read the herd like a text and found the weakest word. They read the landscape like a map. Fresh dung, still warm, not yet frozen, told them direction and timing. The animal passed through less than 2 hours ago. Flattened grass indicated weight and speed. Back tracks landing on top of front tracks meant the mammoth was walking calm, no sense of threat. If the back tracks veered off to the side, the animal was nervous. They hunted the same animals for years, possibly passing down knowledge about specific individuals across generations. Not just a mammoth. This mammoth, the one with the damaged right tusk that always moves toward the north bank of the river in the 3rd week of the cold season. Separating the target from the herd was the most dangerous moment of the entire hunt and the most precise. The group approached from downwind so their scent wouldn't reach the herd early. Then one hunter stepped into the open, close enough for the herd to notice, not close enough to trigger a full charge. The herd closed ranks. Young and weak moved to the center. The chosen animal, the one with the off rhythm on the edge, ended up slightly behind the group's movement. That's when two hunters moved out from the flanks, not running, walking, steady and direct. That was enough. The animal on the edge perceived threat from 3 points simultaneously and instinctively moved away from the least dense direction, straight into where the hunters were already guiding it. The herd moved on. The loner stayed, and the hunt began. Then came the geometry. One or two hunters stayed close on the track, not to catch it, but to never let it stop. The moment the mammoth slowed down, found shade, dropped its head toward water, the pursuer appeared again. Enough noise, enough scent. The others moved on parallel routes, cutting off paths to water and ravines. The mammoth fled the direct threat and ran straight into whoever was already waiting. In 2019, Daniel Lieberman at Harvard University showed that Homo sapiens is, by any objective physiological measure, the greatest persistence hunter in the history of vertebrate life on Earth. The human body sheds heat through 2 million sweat glands spread across nearly bare skin. The woolly mammoth, running hard, was literally cooking inside its own fur. Its muscles began to fail. We could chase it for 6, 8, 12 hours until it simply couldn't move anymore. The end didn't come from a blow, it came from collapse. The hind legs lost coordination first. The animal looked for a slope to lean against. It stopped. That's when the hunters closed in, from the side, toward the weaker leg, outside the arc of the tusks. The spear didn't punch through the hide straight on. It was driven into the soft zones, the armpit, the inner thigh, the base of the trunk. One spear wasn't enough. It took several, and it took complete silence inside the group, because one panicked hunter at that moment got everyone killed. A full butchering of one mammoth took 3 to 5 days. Not hours, days. The entire time the group stayed in the open, the smell of blood carried for miles. Other predators picked it up. Marks from stone tools have been found on mammoth bones from dozens of sites, always in the same places, at the base of the ribs, along the vertebrae, on the pelvic bones, the same pattern at sites separated by thousands of miles. People taught this to each other and passed it down as precise knowledge. One mammoth was a month of food, building material, clothing, and tools all at once. Nothing was thrown away. Not a single thing. The practical side. Meat was prepared several ways depending on what was available. Direct roasting over fire was fastest, but on the steppe, where wood was scarce, they conserved it. More often, they used a different method. They lined a pit in the ground with hide, filled it with water, dropped in heated stones, and boiled the meat. This let them cook large cuts without an open flame. Fat was rendered and stored in animal bladders, natural airtight containers that held up in the cold. Jerky was made in the wind. Thinly sliced meat hung on frames built from bone and sinew. At 20 below and a constant steppe wind, meat dried out in 2 to 3 days and kept for months. The ritual side. They weren't just feeding bodies. Mammoth bones, especially skulls and tusks, weren't simply discarded. At sites like Sungir and Pavlov, skulls have been found with deliberate notches and traces of red ochre. These aren't butchering marks, there's something else. Parts of the killed animal became objects embedded in the social structure of the group, who struck first, whose hand was on the spear, that mattered in ways that went beyond dividing the meat. The hunt wasn't just about food, it was the defining event in the life of the group, the thing that made a man, that gave the tribe its claim to the land. Let's come back to where we started. You can't stop, you keep chasing. That's not a metaphor. In 2021, a research team led by David Reichlin at the University of Southern California published neuroimaging data showing that sustained physical activity in humans activates the endocannabinoid system in a way not found in any other mammal studied at comparable intensity. Simply put, the longer you pursue a goal, physically or psychologically, the harder your brain rewards you for continuing, not for finishing, for continuing. You are built not to stop, because a hunter who stops is a dead hunter, and that circuit still fires in a marathon, in a work deadline, in a conflict you should have let go of 3 weeks ago. The ability to read someone else's behavior from tiny signals, their walk, their rhythm, their eyes, the same thing the hunter used to pick a target out of a herd, today we call social intuition. You use it in negotiations, in a conversation with your boss, in the first seconds of meeting someone new. It's not a skill, it's an ancient program 40,000 years old. 40,000 years ago, a human stood in the snow with a stick and walked toward 4 tons of animal that could kill him with one move. He didn't do it because he was brave. He did it because his body, his brain, his group were assembled for exactly that moment. That architecture didn't disappear. It's in you right now. There's only one question. Do you know when to stop? Picture this. 40,000 years ago, somewhere on the Eurasian steppe, 20 below zero, and you're still running.